Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today we're going to be taking a look at some crazy residual Mandela proof that is out there and has been going around. I have found some of this has been sent to me by some viewers, and I certainly appreciate it. So let's just jump right in, and let's jump on to the first case here, the curious case of Ed McMahon and the Publishers Clearinghouse. Now, if you're a little bit older like me and you remember back in the 70s and 80s, mostly the 80s and into the 90s, Ed McMahon, who used to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, he was Johnny Carson's sidekick on the show for years and years and years, and then Johnny retired and Ed McMahon went on to work for Publishers Clearinghouse, and he would basically drive around in the Publishers Clearinghouse van, and he'd show up at people's doors, and he would give them a big giant check when they won, the $1 million, and that was always a $1 million prize from Publishers Clearinghouse. And it basically helped them to sell magazines. So you would buy a magazine or two, or a subscription to a magazine or two for a year in hopes that you would win the big $1 million prize from Publishers Clearinghouse, and Ed McMahon would show up at your door with this big giant check. Well, as it turns out, Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. So as you can see here, this is in Forbes magazine. It's actually Forbes Online, so it's the website. Don't, I know people will say it's not, the magazine, it's the website, but it is Forbes Online. And they have an article talking about the curious case of Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse, and how Ed McMahon never was an employee of Publishers Clearinghouse. And let me see, I got too much selected there, but basically right here, this little paragraph here says it all. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. He was a spokesman for American Family Publishers. Never heard of American Family Publishers. McMahon never left the studio to ambush families, and he never held a giant check. This is so crazy and outlandish. All of us remember him doing this, right? So we could let it go here and say, well, we remember it and it's just another Mandela effect. However, what we have is some crazy, awesome residual proof that Ed McMahon did, in fact, work for Publishers Clearinghouse. He did, in fact, hold giant checks, and he did show up at people's doors and ambushed families with the winning check. So let's take a look.
People, this is Ed McMahon, rolling slow through the suburbs in an unmarked van. I ran the strip in the 80s, brought big fat checks to the ladies. When I showed up at their door, they would start screaming like crazy. So I'm hitting up the winners to get my checks back.
So I'm hitting up the winners to get my checks back.
Now, he doesn't necessarily say Publishers Clearinghouse in the video that I've heard. However, we know for a fact that he says he went to people's doors and he handed them big fat checks. So, if you guys don't think that the Ed McMahon thing was crazy enough, let's take a look at something else. Now, many of us remember that, and you can see right here, when you type into Google, Sally Field Mandela Effect, you can see clearly that there's some problems right off the bat. She is now known as Sally Field, and not Sally Fields, as many of us remember her. And, of course, the biggest Mandela effect around her is the fact that we all remember her saying in her acceptance speech, "You like me. You really, really like me." Now, that was how everybody remembers it. There was a ton of internet memes that came out. You can see all of these memes that came out that, you love me, you really, really love me. And there were, well, if this thing ever loads, this is kind of a crappy picture here, but there we go. You love me, you really, really love me. And then, you like me, you really like me. So you can see here that there's so many pieces of residual evidence that show Sally Field saying, "You like me, you really, really like me." And there is none of it, I mean literally no memes that we can find that say, if you type in Sally Field Mandela Effect, you don't see anything that says what she says now. And we'll take a look at that.
Feel it, but this time I feel it, and I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me.
So now Sally Field says, you like me, right now you like me. Why would she say right now you like me? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, many people can argue this point and can say, well, oh, maybe she meant right now as in that maybe they didn't before, or maybe they wouldn't in the future, but right now, since she just won her Oscar, then, right now you really like her. Well, but it doesn't end there with Sally Field. As it turns out, Sally Field's brother is a scientist at CERN. That's right. It all comes back to CERN. So we can see here that Sally Field is on David Letterman talking about her brother working at CERN, and we have a clip of that.
Here's something else I love. I don't know anything about your family.
Oh, what?
Turns out you have a brother who
yes.
is a scientist, a
high-energy particle scientist.
High-energy particle scientist.
Particle scientist. He's one of the finest scientists on Earth.
And where does he do his work?
At CERN, where they, I think there's 200 of them that, release this information about the Higgs particle, the God particle, and he was one of the scientists who made that discovery at CERN, which I was able to go and visit. Which
when we say CERN, that's
CERN
in Switzerland.
Is in Switzerland. It's on the border between France and Switzerland. It's this entire city, basically, underground, which is this collider.
And your brother has done this all his life?
All his life,
Where did he go to school?
He went to Berkeley. He got his doctorate at Berkeley, and has been doing this. He's been doing, putting those pieces together to figure out how we all started.
Wow.
His whole life.
It's crazy impressive, isn't it?
It's crazy impressive. I mean, the two of us, he does that, and I do this. I mean,
make people's heads twirl.
It kind of, yeah.
But so you go over there.
Yeah.
Hi, David. I saw the show you did last month, I think it was, with my sister Sally, where you talked about the Higgs boson and the LHC and me a little bit. And I thought it was a great show. It was so funny. Sally didn't get anything very accurate, but she showed a lot of enthusiasm. It's a wonderful show. And I was also very impressed by you. You sound like you appreciate science and understood a little bit of it. And so I'm here at CERN now. We're having a meeting, CMS meeting, and on behalf of everybody here at CERN, I'd like to invite you to come to CERN. And we'll get you a hard hat so you don't get hit by a stray atom, and we'll show you around. But I actually have a better idea. I think you should bring your whole crew and do a David Letterman show from here. And I think it'd be a great show, a great David Letterman show from CERN.
So now you can see that a simple Google search, Sally Field Brother CERN, will give you both of those videos that I just showed you the clips from. I just showed you the clips, the parts of the clips that mattered. You can go and watch the full 5-minute clip from the David Letterman show, and you can go and watch the full minute and 16 clip from Rick Field at CERN. I'm not saying that CERN is at the root of all this, but I am saying that CERN certainly is implicated. So there's that bit of craziness there as well. And let's jump into now, once again, I know we've talked and touched on this one time, but now I have some really, really crazy residual evidence for the Volkswagen symbol. And this stuff is even better than that one hubcap that I showed in my last video. Some people said that the hubcap, was one piece of residual evidence and it didn't prove anything. Some people said that, the hubcaps were made in China, which I highly doubt. This is an old hubcap. This is from, at the very latest, the beginning part of the 1980s. This hubcap was not... more than likely was probably not farmed out to the Chinese. Volkswagen, the engineers were building these cars and they were building them all in Germany, and I highly doubt that they were farmed out to China. However, I do have one viewer who told me that he owns 3 of these hubcaps, and they were made in China. So I've asked him to please send pictures over of these hubcaps. You know, I'd love to see the made in China stamped on there, because maybe that would give reason to why it doesn't have this line in the middle like it supposedly does, like all Volkswagen logos have had since the beginning of time. And I am yet to see anything back from that viewer. Not to say he's incorrect, I'm just saying that even if the Chinese were working for Volkswagen, don't you think Volkswagen would say, hey, you got it wrong, you know, take them back and put the line in the middle and make it our logo like it should be? I believe they would, because, you know, them being German and sticklers for getting things right, I believe that they would ask for their hubcaps to be right and to match all of the other icons and logos on the car that have the Volkswagen symbol and supposedly with no line in the middle. However, I did run across, and thank you very much to my viewer, Ricky, and Ricky, you know who you are, and he sent me this great list of Mandela Effects that are residual proof of the Volkswagen Mandela Effect. So let's take a look. We have 2 golf hats. We have more images from many different places that show Volkswagens without the line in the middle. Again, we have another hubcap. This is a full wheel hubcap. This goes over the entire wheel, as you can see here. It's not just center hubcap. It doesn't just cover the hub. This goes over the entire wheel, and it does not have the line in the middle. So I'm wondering, maybe this was made in China too? Don't know. Don't think so. And as a final bit of smoking gun type of proof, I say let's look at this hood ornament from the old Volkswagens. Now look at this hood ornament. This hood ornament clearly shows that there is no line in the middle of the Volkswagen symbol. This is smoking gun evidence. How can you deny that this is? I mean, you can look at how ornate this symbol is. You can see clearly on this symbol they put a lot of time and effort into this. They would not have screwed this up. They would not have missed the line in the middle of this. So you have to ask yourself, is it just people were screwing up all over the place over at Volkswagen, which, as we know, German engineers are known for screwing up, right? Negative. They are not known for screwing up. They are known for being sticklers about the little things. So why do we have all of these pieces of residual evidence around Volkswagen and around Sally Field and around Fruit Loops and all these other things that we've mentioned in this video? It doesn't make any sense. Folks, you have to ask yourselves, are we really seeing things for what they are here, or has something changed? I'm going to wrap this up now. I have to work on another Planet X video that I have coming out. Please be on the lookout for that. It will be out very soon. It's got some really good information in that one too. But get in the comment section. Please let me know what you guys think of these pieces of residual proof. I believe these are smoking gun pieces of evidence that prove that something is awry. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate all you guys do, and I truly appreciate all your support. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and comment, and we will see you guys soon. Clearinghouse, and Ed McMahon would show up at your door with this big giant check. Well, as it turns out, Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. So as you can see here, this is in Forbes magazine. It's actually Forbes Online, so it's the website. Don't I know people will say it's not, the magazine, it's the website, but it is Forbes Online, and they have an article talking about the curious case of Ed McMahon and published. Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today we're going to be taking a look at some crazy residual Mandela proof that is out there and has been going around. I have found some of this. Some of this has been sent to me by some viewers, and I certainly appreciate it. So let's just jump right in, and let's jump onto the basically drive around in the Publishers Clearinghouse van, and he'd show up at people's doors, and he would give them a big giant check when they won, the $1 million, and that was always a $1 million prize from Publishers Clearinghouse. And it basically helped them to sell magazines. So you would buy a magazine or two, or a subscription to a magazine or two for a year in hopes that you would win the big $1 million prize from Publishers. First case here, the curious case of Ed McMahon and the Publishers Clearinghouse. Now, if you're a little bit older like me and you remember back in the 70s and 80s, mostly the 80s and into the 90s, Ed McMahon, who used to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, he was Johnny Carson's sidekick on the show for years and years and years, and then Johnny retired and Ed McMahon went on to work for Publishers Clearinghouse, and he would